Hi guys, it's Anna with A Stone Tarot and Magic. So in my last video, I was talking about when you get discarded and then have contact briefly or otherwise after a period of no contact. And in that video, I mentioned that these people that act this way are wounded and traumatized people from childhood. But one of the things that I don't think people talk about at all, ever, like I never see this, is how when they're acting out, how you can tell. I mean, for the most part, you can get a good idea anyway of what age they were when they were traumatized. And let me give you an example of what I mean. So, for instance, with the person in my life that was like this, when they would get mad at me, which was every day, all the time, they would call me names, like stupid names, like really childish stuff, right? And so, it makes sense, like around the time that, tween years, 8, 9, or 9, 10, 11 years old, around that time frame, when kids start cussing, that's about the time they had their trauma. And God knows what happened before that or after, right? But yeah, you can tell by how they behave. So if somebody's constantly calling you names like you would hear in a schoolyard, then you can pretty much say, like, probably during grade school. If they're a little bit more malicious, then you can say maybe it was a little older. But it's very interesting to me, especially with men. And I know women do this too, but I'm just talking from my experience because I date men, that they always are kind of stuck in this age phase. So there's, this issue with people with trauma, people with like complex post-traumatic stress disorder like myself, or people that are narcissists or borderline or whatever. They, any kind of trauma-induced disorder. Those people, we all have some form of like multiple personality, right? Not like the disorder of, dissociative identity disorder, but we have different faces that we wear during certain things. Like, so for instance, with me, I shut down when someone starts yelling at me. I'm not listening anymore because it takes me back to being a kid and having like no control, whatever. Okay. So if you can kind of put yourself back into one of your arguments right now and see like, how are they behaving and how are you responding, and you can kind of figure out like what age stuff went down. And, and some, many people have multiple age phases that they're stuck at because it's usually not just one instance of trauma that causes this, right? So like for me, it would be like 12 years old for sure, and then 15 years old, and then in my early 20s. So when things get crazy for me, like stressful or whatever, sometimes a 12-year-old comes out and makes those decisions, and it's not the best decision because it's 12-year-old brain making decisions for an adult woman, right? But like I'm aware of it. Okay, so instead of like saying that there's multiple personalities, I would say it's the same personality, but just at different ages within that person's life. Does that make sense? Like, so the really immature and like reactive me would be that 12-year-old, right? And the more like rebellious and risky one would be the 15-year-old. And then the more like a little bit more coherent, but still not 100% grounded or stable one would be the early 20s, right? So just, think of it in terms of, being stuck at a specific age. So if you're looking at an adult, right? You're looking at this person that's been causing you trauma and just drama, right? And you see them as an adult because chronologically, physically, they are. But mentally, they're not. They're not. Trauma does something to our brains. It literally changes it. It changes the physiology of the brain, and it changes an area of the brain that has to do with reasoning. And, that's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. So if you're trying to understand why they act this way, and you're trying to do it through regular means, like you would with a normal person that doesn't have any kind of trauma, that doesn't have any kind of narcissistic tendencies, whatever, you're not going to ever get what you're looking for. You have to look at it through a lens of like what age are they right now? Like, yes, they might be 40, but like, how old is their brain that's making this call right now? Like, you know, so if someone's calling you names like loser and dummy or, you know, like little kid stuff, then, you know, right then you know that they're dealing with their elementary school level self. Okay. So that's where you got to come at. Like, that's where you have to meet them. You have to meet them at their level. You know, that's kind of the thing. And some of us don't want to have to do that, right? And we probably shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to. In a perfect world, everybody would be fixed and none of this would happen in the first place, right? But we don't live in a perfect world, unfortunately. So I was just wanting to share this with you in the hopes that maybe it might kind of help some of you kind of come to terms with why this is happening. Like, why are they so impossible to talk to? Why are they so impossible to resolve anything with? You know, why are they so reactive? Why are they so always poor me or you're upsetting me? Why? Because they're children. They're children in their head. Yes, they're an adult, but they're mentally a child when it comes to things that upset them and how they respond to that. So maybe that makes a little more sense now. You can see why they have temper tantrums, because they are literally having temper tantrums because they're literally mentally a child. Make sense? Yeah. So I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. All right, guys. Have a good one. Let's be.